Welcome to Training 1, Module 2, Steps 1 and 2 of the Copper Mark Assurance Process. This training is intended for users of the assurance process, including copper producer practitioners and Copper Mark assessors. This module covers Step 1 of the Copper Mark Assurance Process, Letter of Commitment, and Step 2 of the Copper Mark Assurance Process, Self-Assessment. As a reminder, the Copper Mark Assurance Process cycle follows 5 steps. This training focuses on the first 2. Step 1, Letter of Commitment. The letter of commitment is the public statement that demonstrates the copper producer's support of and commitment to the assurance process. It sends a market signal to the copper producer's customers, investors, and other stakeholders. When the copper producer signs the letter of commitment, the copper producer is considered to be participating in the Copper Mark assurance process, and the associated requirements and timelines are triggered. The Copper Mark sends interested copper producers a blank letter of commitment and producer agreement. The letter of commitment must be completed at the site level and includes relevant information for scoping purposes. If a copper producer applies for multiple sites, a separate letter of commitment must be provided for each participating site. The copper producer also signs the producer agreement, which is the service agreement between the copper producer and the Copper Mark. This document may be completed at the corporate level and cover multiple sites, or it may be signed by each site separately. The internal review and approval of these documents may take a few weeks. The Copper Mark recommends allocating approximately 1 month for this step of the process. In collaboration with the copper producer, the Copper Mark publishes the copper producer's name and signed letter of commitment on the Copper Mark website. The annex of the letter of commitment containing more detailed information on the copper producer's operations is not published. Step 2, Self-Assessment. In 6 months of signing the letter of commitment, copper producers are required to complete and submit their self-assessment. Each participating site has to complete a self-assessment. The self-assessment is completed in the Risk Readiness Assessment, or RRA platform, of the Responsible Minerals Initiative. Let's have a look at the RRA platform, how to get started, and what copper producers will need to complete the self-assessment.
Welcome to your Risk Readiness Assessment dashboard. In this video, we'll give you a brief overview of the RRA platform and its features. Right now, you're looking at your company's dashboard, which provides useful data about your company and its sites and facilities. In the Notifications panel, you'll see alerts about any new developments that relate to your organization. For example, you might see a new RRA submission from an upstream company. Within the RRA platform, the upstream and downstream companies with whom you connect are referred to as upstream and downstream partners. On the right-hand side of your dashboard, there's an organization location map, which illustrates the geographic location of your corporate headquarters in relation to any partners with whom you are connected. If you have specified any of your company's own sites or facilities, these will be visible as well. The bottom left-hand panel is a chart that represents your site or facility's level of readiness, broken into the 5 risk categories identified on the RRA. The bottom right-hand panel is a graph that represents your site or facility's current distribution of risk readiness practices that are not meeting, partially meeting, fully meeting, or exceeding the industry norms referenced in the RRA. To the left of your dashboard, you'll see a navigation menu. If you select Our Organization, you can view and edit details about both your company and its sites and facilities. You can also start an RRA or view the results of a given site or facility's RRA within the Our RRAs menu item. Under Connect to Partners, you can connect with upstream companies by either searching for companies who are already using the platform, using the Search and Connect function, or by inviting external companies to join the platform using email. You can manage your initiated and received invitation requests under Manage Invitations. To initiate or respond to an RRA request, click the Manage RRAs menu item. Here you'll be able to keep track of all incoming and outgoing assessment updates. You'll also receive assessment status updates in your dashboard's notification panel. Under Completed Partner RRAs, you'll be able to view your connected upstream partners and their assessment results, as well as any connected downstream partners with whom you've shared your assessment results. To send and receive internal messages with connected partners, use the Messages function. Under the Documents menu item, you can find the documents that a partner has provided with their RRA submission. You can also find any documents that your organization has provided in any given RRA. All you need to do is specify the appropriate organization in the search bar and choose the site you wish to view documents for. Then click View. You can create new internal users at both the corporate and the site or facility level in the Manage User menu item. A site or facility level user can be designated as the coordinator for a given activity, making them the primary point of contact when it comes to requesting or responding on behalf of a certain site or facility. To manage your own account details, click the icon next to your username in the top right-hand corner of the screen.
Within 6 months of signing the letter of commitment, copper producers are required to complete and submit their self-assessment. Each participating site has to complete a self-assessment. The self-assessment is completed in the Risk Readiness Assessment, or RRA, platform of the Responsible Minerals Initiative. Copper producers self-assess their performance for each of the applicable environmental, social, and governance criteria. When completing the RRA, companies without mining operations will note that they are only requested to complete 29 of the 32 criteria. This is because criterion 19, tailings, 22, mine closure and reclamation, and 27 on security and human rights are automatically considered out of scope for sites that are not engaged in mining. In this step, the copper producer uploads relevant documentation to support the determination. This is also where a copper producer will request equivalency for criteria that have already been independently assessed at site level. In step 3, the independent reviewer will review the responses and supporting documentation in order to make a recommendation on the need for and scope of the site assessment. The RRA platform includes a feature to upload supporting documentation for each criterion. When using a system listed on the RRA Coppermark equivalency matrix, indicate that system in the RRA. The platform will auto-populate the RRA for the equivalent criteria. Users may override responses if needed. Information added in the RRA is visible to the Coppermark, the independent reviewer, the assessor, and any customers with whom the RRA is shared. For copper producers who do not wish to share supporting evidence via the RRA platform, the Coppermark will set up a secure alternative such as Dropbox or SharePoint. Note that copper producers may upload supporting evidence in local languages. Evidence submitted in response to the RRA questions is used by the independent reviewer to assess completeness, equivalencies, and scope. Copper producers are not required to upload documentation that is confidential or includes information on individual workers. Copper producers are encouraged to upload policies, procedures, external assurance reports, certificates, annual reports, and information that will help the independent reviewer understand the existence of management systems and the scope of previous independent assessments carried out at the site. Some organizations might have corporate-level policies and procedures that pertain to some of the criteria. Because the assurance process is site-based, copper producers should provide information to demonstrate implementation of those policies at the site level. When a criterion is not applicable, the copper producer must provide an explanation using the comment function in the RRA platform. Where possible, the copper producer should provide relevant, verifiable documentation to support the explanation. For example, biodiversity may not be applicable for a site located in a specially designated industrial zone. To demonstrate this, the site can provide the address and any documentation that verifies that designation. Equivalence. The Coppermark takes a pragmatic approach to recognition and equivalence. Copper producers that intend to use existing systems should contact the Coppermark as early as possible. The assurance process requires that all applicable criteria are independently assessed at the site level. In order to ensure efficiency and reduce the need for additional independent site assessments, Copper producers may wish to claim that one or more of the copper mark criteria has already been assessed by a third party through an equivalent system. The copper mark recognition process explains the criteria, process, and timelines for recognition of existing systems in more detail. There are two core elements of the recognition process. The first is the review and recognition of an existing system. This is completed by the copper mark, and the results are communicated through the RRA copper mark equivalency matrix. The second is the application of equivalence during the copper producer's assurance process. This is indicated by the copper producer during the self-assessment and verified by the independent reviewer during step 3. Let's look more closely at these two phases. The RRA copper mark equivalency matrix documents systems that have been benchmarked against the RRA criteria. The system is rated as equivalent, not fully equivalent, or not applicable for each criterion. The matrix is jointly issued by the RMI and the copper mark. It is updated twice per year, once in the spring and once in the fall. Requests for review must be received by the 31st of March or the 30th of September, respectively. Copper producers should check with the copper mark for systems that are not listed on the RRA copper mark equivalency matrix. The ratings are defined based on the comparability to the RRA criteria. When a system is equivalent to a criterion, this area does not normally have to be assessed again. When a system is not fully equivalent, the criterion or any specific gaps between the criterion and the RRA criteria are assessed during the copper producer's site assessment. When a system is not applicable, the whole criterion is assessed in the copper producer's site assessment. Copper producers using recognized systems submit evidence of verification in the RRA for the applicable criteria. The evidence must include, at a minimum, the assessment report, including information to demonstrate the name of the independent verifier or certification body, as well as the dates, scope, expiration, results of the verification, and improvement plans as applicable. The evidence is reviewed during step 3, the independent review, to ensure it is valid, covers the same scope as the RRA criteria, and confirm that an improvement plan is implemented and verified for any identified gaps or nonconformances. The independent reviewer may request additional information during the iterative process. The determination of equivalence is a critical component of the assurance process. It forms the basis for the copper mark's decision on the need and scope of the site assessment. Even if equivalence is recognized in the RRA copper mark equivalency matrix, a site assessment may still be deemed necessary for the relevant criteria. This determination is made only after the self-assessment and independent review are complete. In the next training module, we will discuss the independent review process in more detail. To summarize, before beginning the self-assessment, copper producers should identify any existing systems they may wish to use for equivalency, such as site-level certificates or externally assured management systems. Refer to the RRA copper mark equivalency matrix to understand which criteria the existing system may cover. Discuss systems that are not on the RRA copper mark equivalency matrix with the copper mark or request review by the 31st of March or 30th of September. And finally, prepare certificates, assurance reports, and other evidence. This brings us to the end of Module 2. Thank you for your participation.